good morning, everyone. Wish you all a very happy Independence Day. I am Riddhi from Igniting Minds. With the word independence comes a lot of views as a parent. It comes to an independent child, whether it's doing the house chores independently, doing their homework independently, or doing and indulging into some public speaking independently. So on my Facebook group, when I put up a question saying, what is it that you parents would like to know about, a lot of you opted for public speaking. So here I have with me this at most beautiful, talented, and really nice interactive lot of experts. And let me introduce you to them. The Confident Communicator. So we have collaborated, Igniting Minds and Confident Communicator. We have collaborated for today's session. The Confident Communicator is a communications and soft skills consulting company whose mission is to empower every customer to become the best version of themselves. Whether they are students, women, or corporate managers, it is their goal and mission to help others live their dream life. I will now introduce you to the panel of our speakers. We have with us Deepma Jadeja. She started her career as a school teacher, moved up into corporate HR and soft skills training, became an entrepreneur, and circled right back to the incredibly fulfilling life of training young adults. She conducts training programs in communication skills, leadership, and assertiveness for young adults and corporates, and has co-developed several products in line with the company's mission of empowerment. Deepma, if you would like to wave out to our audience and say a big hello to them.
Hi everyone, welcome. Looking forward to getting to know you guys better.
Thank you. Up next we have Sima Mehta. Sima Mehta began her professional career in marketing. Sima then met an old college friend of hers from Bombay. I like how you still say Bombay and not Mumbai. It's the feeling, And they began chatting, discovered that they still had that old chemistry and bond, and had both evolved into wanting to work with young people. Together, they founded the Confident Communicator and haven't looked back since. Sima has been in marketing, has written extensively, both in personal blogs and professionally. She has worked with social media, strategy, and consulted for companies both in the US and in India. Her sense of empathy makes her a great mentor for nervous teenagers embarking out into the corporate maze for the first time. Seema, if you would like to say hello to all of us.
I'd like to say a very, very happy Independence Day to all of you. What a beautiful day for all of us to get together. This is the best day we could have picked. Thank you, Riddhi, for having us.
Thank you. Up next, we have my college friend, Ankita Shah. Ankita Shah, though I can give her a very different introduction, but if I'm supposed to say professional, then
let's stay professional.
Give her a very professional introduction. She was very determined from a very young age that she wanted to explore the field of education and contribute to the learning and development of young minds. She accomplished this goal by doing her ECCN, PG in Human Development, B.Ed in English and History, and the Cambridge International Diploma in Teaching and Learning. She has almost 10 years of experience in teaching the early years and also did soft skills training for the same group. She believes to engage in continuous learning programs and development, and she strongly practices the same, that a teacher takes a hand, opens the mind, and touches the heart. Ankita, would you like to wave out to all of us?
Thank you so much, Riddhi, for the amazing introduction. And it's so glad that we connected after from college till now, from being just college mates to working together. It's great to be associated with Igniting Minds. Thank you so much.
If at all you have a question for our experts, which I'm sure all of us do, please feel free to raise your hand or put it in the chat box, and we would be more than happy to address your questions. And me, when I just started the Zoom call and I started speaking, of course, I was a nervous wreck for the first 2 minutes. And I have been hosting for like donkey years, whether it is for my school events, whether it's even teaching the kids public speaking. So I always tell my children that, you're talking about yourself. I'll tell you, I still get anxious. So I think it's very important that we normalize the concept of feeling that anxiety, and at the same time help them cope with it and, blossom into confident speakers. So few parents had some questions that they messaged to me personally. I will just bring it up one by one. The first question, what is exactly public speaking? Okay, when we say public speaking, what is it exactly that we are looking at? And also, this is a question that we had put up on Igniting Minds on Facebook. Can confidence be practiced or learned? Over to you.
Thank you once again for having us. We're very happy to be here. And for all of us, this is a topic. This is a topic that brings out a lot of passion in us. We're very passionate about it. We really want to empower our young children to feel more confident. One of the things that we did at the Confident Communicator was, a lot of people say, I will go ahead and go on stage when I'm more confident, or I will do more public speaking when I'm more confident. I will take part in such and such competition when I'm more confident. And we decided to take that entire definition and turn it upside down. And so we said, you know what, let's take, and like we had posted in one of our teasers, what is one of the biggest fears of human beings? The biggest fear, 75% of the population is afraid of public speaking, is afraid of speaking in public. And we'll go into it a little bit more in detail as to what is public speaking. What we did was we went ahead and took public speaking and we said that's the biggest fear. So if we teach children and young adults to conquer this biggest fear, they're automatically going to be more confident, and they are going to be confident, and that confidence is going to it's going to spill over into all of the other areas and skills of their lives as well. So we took public speaking, we helped children develop their public speaking skills in order to develop their confidence.
There is a bit of a myth here. So everybody thinks public speaking is what makes you confident, because our perception of a very confident person is somebody who stands in front of stage, has no fear, and is literally enthralling and engaging the audience, and that's what public speaking is. I think so. We need to kind of break that up into two parts. So there is a misunderstanding in the parents that if my child becomes a public speaker, they become confident. But confidence is such a vast topic. It includes so many things. It includes your self-esteem. It includes your ability to be assertive. It includes even a simple thing like, am I able to ask a question in class? Am I able to express my opinions? And let's face it, let's go a few steps back. How many of us, whether in the education field or even in parenting, ask our children for their opinions? We don't. And that's where it starts. It starts literally at that point. In fact, I would go one step further, where I would say the way the Confident Communicator evolved is when Deepma and I came back from the US. We both came from different parts of the US. We came back to India. We put our children in these international schools, and we were so expecting that our children will turn out to be these bright and confident speakers, because they're in an international environment and all of that. And we were very disappointed, and we realized that that's the one soft skill that is so critical in the success and development of a child. And it starts really, really young. It starts as young as 4 years of age. I mean, look at your daughter. She was so confident about the fact that today you cannot yell at me, right? Really begins that need and the desire to be acknowledged for your own opinions, your own self of confidence is so important. It starts very, very young. So that's one thing. Now, public speaking, obviously, the perception is that it is all about speaking in front of a large crowd. So what we do is in our classes, we do a lot of how do you engage with the audience? How do we come up with strategies to talk about ways in which you can engage with an audience? But I think there's another part to it also. How do you build that self-confidence so that in any situation, you are able to assert yourself? beautifully. And that's where we really like to make the distinction between public speaking, as in speaking in a public forum in front of a crowd, versus just being able to express yourself very, very confidently. So those are the two parts to public speaking that we really stress on. And I think that's very critical to include in our education system.
Oftentimes, the word confidence and the word self-esteem are used interchangeably, right? And that's something that I'd like to make the distinction right now. We are in, all of our viewers today are in the enviable position of being exactly within the age group in which they can improve their child's self-esteem. Self-esteem is built between infancy and 8 years of age. And it is something that their sense of I am, their sense of self-worth is embedded very deeply into their subconscious, and it comes from their environment, their caregivers, and their parents. So as parents, we are in the position up to the point that they are 8 years old in building their building our children's self-esteem in order to make them more confident and more having a sense of self-worth and having a sense of self-worthiness. Now, the distinction with confidence. Confidence is more attached to a skill. So I can say I'm an extremely confident baker because I've baked hundreds of cakes and I've baked hundreds of cookies. And I know that if you come and ask me to bake something, I'm a confident baker. But am I a confident, let's say, skydiver? Absolutely not, because I've never skydived before. So I do not have the confidence in that skill. Similarly with public speaking, I will not be confident as a public speaker. I will not be confident articulating my views as a public speaker unless I practice, unless I'm given the forum and the platform to practice for a long time before I start developing the skill, and then I start becoming confident at that skill. So let's, as parents, develop our children's self-esteem, sense of self-worth up to the time that they are 8 years old, in how we talk to them, in how we encourage them, in how we are positive with them, in how we, our expectations of them. And then secondly, let's also build their confidence all throughout their lives by giving them the ability to learn new things and know that I can learn these new things. I may not know it now, but I can learn it and I can become good at it. So that is a distinction that I really wanted to draw out.
And also, I think Deepma has just answered that question, which is, can confidence be taught? Absolutely. We are all not born confident. We can become confident because it is a learned skill. It is not something that, not everybody is born confident. You can actually learn it on the way. There are lots of strategies and ways in which we can do that.
Yeah. I would like to add something. When I took up soft skills for the early years, that's as early as between 2 to 5 years, a lot of parents and teachers, they approached me and they were so curious to know that does it really happen at this age? So I was like, it has to start at this age. You don't have to wait for them to turn into adolescents or adults. You have to start it from a very young age because it's the roots that have to be really tight. That's when they'll grow up to be confident individuals. So I think that's one dilemma that a lot of parents have, that how early should we start developing these soft skills? So it's as early as possible, and as soon as possible you can start.
There is certain amount of pressure that comes from the parents and on the child. It's very important to give them that kind of space and their own time of growth. Another thing is, a lot of parents say that, my child used to be so confident and now suddenly he just doesn't want to go up on the stage and I'm furious. These are phases of growing up. They are going to go through these phases. Some days will be good. Some days will not be as good. But acceptance and normalizing these things, I think, are the only two ways of telling your child it's okay what you do. I'll just like to share a little anecdote with you guys. I remember teaching a child who was as young as 3 years old. and I was doing public speaking for him. He came from a background which is a little disturbing. He had lost his mother. So it was very, I still choke when I recollect that incident. He had lost his mother, had a stepmother who was very sweet, very encouraging. I can't tell you how supportive she was. He would learn everything so well when it was just with the teachers. That is within the comfort zone before in front of his friends. The minute he would go up on the stage, he would freeze. Even then, the teachers, his mom, his dad, and all his friends would clap for him. These performances would happen twice a year. And some of them, there were a few parents who were like, why are you clapping? He's not like even performed. And we just let it rest. 3 years later, this boy aced the stage. It was just so heartwarming to see that. So I think it's very important that you encourage your child and see positive in it. Those claps made a difference, and today that boy is just shining so bright. So
that's such a good example, Riddhi, and I'll tell you something. I mean, I think there is a combination of a fear as a parent. We have a lot of fears as a parent. Okay, that's number one. The other is a lot of our own unfulfilled dreams and desires that we had for ourselves that we could not finish. We try to dump that on our children without realizing that they are very different individuals. So I think a little bit of that happens, but a little bit of encouragement can lead a child to go such a long way. Love what you said about acceptance. We've got to accept our kids first for what they are and who they are. So we start from there.
Yes, my own daughter's 4 years old. She runs her own Instagram page, and she goes like, "Hi guys," and she teaches about makeup and talks about random things. But this very girl who enjoys shooting videos, she was, as a child, she would never go to anybody or speak to anyone. We as a family, I live in a joint family. We as a family mutually decided nobody will force her to speak to anybody. She will find her comfort whenever she does, whether it's now, whether it's later, it's okay.
And today is Independence Day. Let's talk about freedom. I mean, you really need to give the children the freedom to grow in the interest that they want to acquire for themselves. Because let's face it, how many of us have gone into wrong colleges? We had no choice. Some of us from my generation, we literally had 3 streams of education and we had to pick one. And it was very, very difficult to keep putting yourself in a box. And we suffered. But our kids today have so many opportunities. So let's give them that space to grow.
A lot of our parenting comes from a place of anxiety, right? We are so worried and we read so much, we watch so many YouTube videos, we watch so many parenting shows, and we're so afraid of our children not meeting certain standards or not meeting certain expectations, and we parent from that place, and that is something that is very, very worrisome. I think that we should parent from a space of, like Sima said, accepting our children for who they are first. Secondly, however, the anxiety sometimes goes the other side of the spectrum, where we then say, oh, I don't want to correct my children at all, and I want to only be their friend. And that is harmful to the kids as well. Because when you come from a space of, I'm so afraid to correct you because that might harm you, kids need structure, kids need rules, kids need guidelines, and they're looking to you to give them those guidelines, to give them that structure, to give them those rules. So you're going to have to always play that little balancing act. And like I've always told my kids, they roll their eyes. They're both teenagers now, and they roll their eyes at me. But I've always told them, you have more than enough friends, but you have only one mom. And so I'm going to be mom. I'm going to focus on being mom. And when you need a friend, you have, 20 other people outside who are more than happy to be your friend.
So continuing to what Sima and Deepma said, there's a pattern of parenting that I have observed from years now. When I was a kid, my parents were like, okay, they were not really like bothered about my grades and coming to every, like my father never came to school to collect my report card or things like that. Now with time, the kind of parenting has changed to do like the helicopter parenting, where we want to control and manage everything that the child is doing. So I think that's where we are kind of taking that whole bit of them growing up by themselves, learning things by their own. Like we are not allowing them to make mistakes. Before they are going to make a mistake, we correct them. Let them go through that phase of trial and error. Let them understand and experience how I need to learn from those mistakes. So I think it's the kind of parenting.
That's because Ankita, the problem is that we think that failure is a bad thing, but actually failure is the best teacher you could ever have in your life. We
Exactly,
always
exactly.
always demonize failure, especially if I remember one parent told me this thing. So my son got 97% in math. I said, wow, that's great. Yeah, but he lost 3. I'm like, really? You're focusing on that. So I think we demonize failure so much, and I think failure is one of the best teachers you can ever have. And I think that if we can start explaining that and putting that in our education system or in the classes, that like especially in our class, we always tell our children the first thing that we're going to focus on is failure, because there is nothing more powerful than the ability to say, you know what, I made a mistake, I'm going to go forward. It's all about your attitude and your interpretation, right? So for example, if somebody says, okay, so you are a very slow learner, why are you reading so slowly, why are you doing things so slowly? I'm doing things slowly because I take time to absorb, and I absorb really well because I'm a slow learner, but I'm a very good learner as a result
Yes.
of that. So when you change that interpretation in the mind of a child, then they are going to be able to deal with any kind of problems that they or challenges that they face in the future. Which
Yes.
is why a lot of our programs are so focused on resilience, on determination, on adaptability, because of this reason. The second thing is we have to instill all these right values and all these things in the mind of the child. For example, reading. I mean, today our children are so much on the gadgets that the art of reading is completely gone. And at the risk of sounding like an old grandma, I'm going to say that reading is so critical and so important in the mind of a child. It really develops your mind, it makes you think, it makes you grow. And I think we can't stress that enough. I think we really need to talk about that at some point.
What I again see a very common trait amongst parents these days is comparison. They do a lot of comparisons even between siblings. Like when they come to me during the PTMs every month, there is always the conversation just starts with that my older daughter or son is doing this, but my younger one doesn't do that. So that pressure on the younger one is always there that I have to do what my older sibling is doing or what my other friend is doing, rather than expecting them to reach what their friend or sibling is doing. Why not work on the qualities that they have? Like it's fine, whatever quality or skill that they have, let's work on that and make that more sharp rather than wanting them to force to do something that they find it difficult.
There is a parent who wants to ask, why is there so much anxiety around public speaking?
Like Deepma said, that is the number one fear of the world. So if everybody is afraid to be on stage in front of people, there are lots of reasons. One is, of course, the fear of being judged, right? We all have that fear of being judged. Am I looking fine? Am I fat? Am I thin? Am I sounding right? Is my content great? Am I engaging with the audience? There are so many such fears, right? So we are constantly being judged when you are in a public speaking situation. So I think that fear of judgment is there. And again, goes back into, I have not taught you the art of failure. Unless and until you don't learn the fact that, you know what, okay, I screwed up. So what? Big deal. I'll move on. I made a mistake. Oops. That self-deprecating humor. We haven't trained our children to be able to absorb that kind of a ability to fail. And once we do that, I think that fear of public speaking will go away. But not to worry, it is the number one fear in the world. So I don't think that I think we are more in the majority than in the minority.
You know, when I was taking public speaking over here in Goa for one of the schools, I did this exercise with the children. I said, I want everybody to like close their eyes. And I said, how many of you fear that you're going to be judged by your friends? And their eyes were closed. And every single one raised their hand up. I said, now with those hands up, open your eyes and look around. I said, even with you being scared that someone's going to judge you, as an audience, we judge. So when you as a parent are sitting with your child, judging someone else on the stage, you are fitting those criteria in the mind of your child that someone else could be speaking the same way about you, you know. So it's very important how we behave.
There is an
Yeah.
additional point to that, and that's a point of kindness. So what happens is, I think we are not teaching our children the whole idea of kindness and empathy, right? When you are empathetic towards somebody else, you are communicating with the idea of understanding. When you have that attitude, and you can see, right, there are very clearly, there are kids who are extremely kind to others, and there are kids who just refuse to be kind to anybody else, and they think that they can bully their way through everything and they can be rude and whatever. So I think that kindness is such a important thing to teach, and all those things you can learn. This can be skills that you can acquire and learn. So I think, for example, every time like what something that I have done as a parent is, every time we have somebody who helps us, somebody opens the door for you, somebody pulls a chair for you need to say thank you. How hard is it? So we start with these very basic teachings for our kids, and we got to start really young. That whole feeling of I'm entitled, and I, just because there is somebody who's a blue collared worker versus a, somebody who's a white collared worker, I'm going to distinguish. And that kind of discrimination and distinction is happening all over the world, which is why today we are in so much trouble. But if we look at people with the idea of understanding and empathy, I think that that will bring in a lot of positivity and confidence in kids. And I think we have to start young. So that's something that I really feel very passionate about.
Adding to that, how do you build empathy in kids? You brought up a beautiful point, Riddhi, where they are listening to you, they are watching you, they are building themselves up according to the role model that is you, right? So we talked about how do you build confidence. The first step was how you talk to your children. Are you being positive with them? Are you being encouraging of them? Are you being kind to them? Are you being loving to them? That's one part of it. But they're also watching how you're talking to others. And they're learning that. And that empathy also builds confidence greatly, because they learn to accept other people. And in accepting other people, they learn to accept themselves. So empathy becomes
Yes.
then an extremely important building block of confidence.
And I think this begins at a very, very young age. As Ankita also rightly said before, that we feel that ye to baad mein kar lenge. When my child grows up, that's when you do it. They don't understand that a child has started learning ever since that child was born. Even when a mother is expecting, we say that listen to this kind of music. The mother should be happy. Why? Because the child has started growing. The child has started learning right from there.
Absolutely.
The
Yeah.
child has already come to life. The child learns in two very important zones, school and home. And if they are not working on the same page, the child will then choose. And they will choose the easier way out. It's a very humane thing to do. It's a human tendency to choose the easier way out.
In order to be an effective public speaker, it's not just enough to be able to speak in front of a crowd of people. You need to have a complete personality and an attitude and a mindset that makes you this great communicator. And I think for that, you need a lot of things. You need to have learning skills, you need to have great content, you need to have good body language, you need to have engaging content, you need to have empathy for others. There are so many factions that go into creating that very confident public speaker. And I think that that's the responsibility that we have in when we offer programs in public speaking. I think a lot of people, we've had so many kids who have come to us, the parents say, oh, so my child has done about 10-12 weeks of public speaking, she's a very confident speaker, but for some reason she's not answering the questions in class, I don't know what to do. So these are very common questions that we get. And we say that's because public speaking is not just putting the child on stage and speaking in front of an audience. That's just one part of it. There's a lot more that they need to learn. So I think that is something that we at the Confident Communicator really focus on. We want it to be a completely holistic program where we cover all of these factors. And I really think that it takes a village. It's not enough just parents are not the only ones. Teachers are actively involved in raising a child. So I think that we have to take that responsibility very, very seriously.
Very
Absolutely
true.
true. Yeah. How do you raise self-esteem, even in an adult, right? What is one of, like Riddhi, you said, what is one of the things that is very natural to us when we are uncomfortable with something, or if we don't know something, is we avoid it, right? We run away from it. We try to get away from that. We say, oh, I'm not good at this, I don't want to do it. The children are watching. And you know, there are scientific studies that say that self-esteem, building self-esteem is not based on the outcome of a particular event. It's just based on the fact that you did something that you were not comfortable doing, something that you felt you didn't know. This comes back to Carol Dweck. If you've heard of Carol Dweck and her concept of growth mindset, right? She talks about the growth mindset, and she says one of the most important words that you could teach a child is the word yet. So when the child says, I can't do this, I don't want to do this, I'm scared of this, I'm worried about this, you always say, I can't do this yet. It's a learnable skill. I don't want to do this yet. I'm not good at this yet. So that is one of the most powerful words you could teach your children. If there's one thing you take away from this seminar on building confidence, it's the word yet. We come in with our anxieties and our expectations and that one's son is doing that and this one's daughter is doing that, and why can't you be like this kind of thing. But if we are able to use this terminology in our speaking, no matter, it's okay if you can't do it yet. Let's kind of maybe look at the steps that are required for you to build this skill, so that you will be able to do it tomorrow or the day after or next month. How about that? And kids immediately start feeling a higher sense of self-esteem and a higher sense of confidence because of that.
That's very true. And I love this, word yet. I think I learned something from this seminar right now. It's beautiful, introducing that concept. I think we all as adults can also learn that,
Yes.
I wish I knew this before. So when I was getting married, I would have said, I don't know cooking yet.
Yes.
I think it's so beautiful.
Love it.
Oh, I have so many messages coming in about parents who couldn't join in, but they want the recording of this session. I think we're going to have to plan one more. Anyway,
Okay.
I feel we focus on the outcome of public speaking rather than the learning process. It's
Yes.
very important that we understand that this is a journey and not a destination. It's something we cannot just accomplish, it's a process. Like, as I said, I've been hosting here. I have been doing things there for like so long now, and so many events, or it's at my school where I'm working, moderating these sessions, everything. But yet, I do feel like a sense of, I am anxious, I am nervous. And I think it's all right, because I am also learning something new every single time.
It's also a known fact, right, that when you step out of your comfort zone is where magic happens. Everybody says
Yes.
that. Get out of
Yes.
your comfort zone. Don't keep doing the same thing. That's a very
Yes.
known fact, right? But how do you get out of a comfort zone when you're terrified? And the only way you can do that is when you have that same attitude that Deepma talked about, which is, I'm not there yet, but I'll get there. In fact, I think Deepma and I, in our journey with the Confident Communicator, it's been 7 years that we've been running this company. We have learned so much, like you said, Riddhi, very rightly so. We are learning even now. We're something like doing a live webinar is itself a learning experience for us. It's probably terrifying, but I'm having such a great time.
The key to public speaking is also improvisation, because only you would know what you actually went up to speak, especially in an individual performance. If you improvise and say something else, the audience will not know. So even if you're goofing up, even if you're bluffing, just do it with confidence, or do it with a smile and make it a
Absolutely.
Till you make it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I
I
think
think, let's not discard that there are, like we said, confidence can be taught, and similarly public speaking is also an art that can be easily taught. I think one of the critical things about learning is, if you're not having fun, you're not going to learn. So putting
yes.
fun in the center is so important. That's why we are very clear that in our program all the kids are going to really learn very well, because they're enjoying themselves, they're having a lot of fun. And that's critical. I think even in school we need to put that. And I think a lot of teachers today are trying really hard to make it a fun experience, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a blessing in disguise when you can connect to your children, because if you want the children to learn, you have to be able to connect to them in
Yes.
a very informal way, so they feel comfortable. So you're creating a comfort zone within the discomfort zone, so that the learning is easier and it's fun.
just wanted to share one strategy that even I have used in class, like Deepma said that yes. So another strategy that I used with my 2 to 5 year olds was like, whenever they have their sports day, it's always that thing, okay, I need to come first. If they don't come first, it's like a complete temper tantrum. So I usually do this kind of a strategy before some big events like an annual event or a sports day. And I tell them that, it's not always important to win. You have to realize that you are participating, and that in itself is a very big thing. You are the part of that process. That's the big thing. So rather than brooding over that I didn't come first, be happy that yes, you could at least be part of it.
I think when we are indulging into very casual games, we always, if the child says, no, but I want to win. So, all of that love for the child, we are like, okay, chalo, you won.
For sure, there is some kind of a emulation, and what you say and what is coming out of your mouth, that becomes very critical in raising a child. Having said that, let's not take that pressure that, oh, I have to be perfect and I have to say all the right and positive things all the time, because then what will happen is you will raise a very entitled child. You will not raise a resilient child. You've got to make them a little bit tough too. So there are this, like Deepma had said earlier, we've got to have that balance.
There are times when I really overreact to things that my daughter does, and but the important part is down, I go up to her and I apologize.
Exactly.
And I tell her that I'm sorry, I was angry and I reacted in a way which hurt you. I should not have. I am really sorry.
Humanize the problem. What you did is you humanized it. You converted it into, oh, my mom can also make mistakes, and my mom can also, or my dad can also make a mistake, and it's okay to say sorry. So I think it's a beautiful thing you do, where you actually humanize the problem and say, this is okay. We are humans. We make mistakes. It's okay to make a mistake. Again, let's not beat up the mistake. That's what we are saying again and again, that people make mistakes, people fail. So we don't need to demonize it. We need to humanize it.
Absolutely.
Yes.
That is so powerful, Sima. We don't need to demonize it. We need to humanize it. I think we need to tattoo that on our brains somewhere, because we are very hard on ourselves also as parents, right? We kind of beat ourselves up so much. And I remember telling a parent once, sometimes both sides of it, when we're trying to balance it, is our protective instinct also comes to the fore a little too often. So when you were talking, Riddhi, about allowing a child to win a game, there's a balance there. There is a side to it where I remember when my husband used to play chess with my son, and my son would be in tears. He was 4 or 5 years old, and he'd be losing these games because my husband would be so hard on him. And so he'd lose and he'd be in tears. And I'd keep saying, can't you let him win every once in a while? Because my protective instinct was coming to the fore. But the other side of that is protecting them too much and allowing them to win too much makes them not see failure and makes them demonize that failure that Sima was talking about. It's bad to fail. It's bad to lose. It's not bad to lose. Like Ankita said, it's great to take part. It's so fabulous that you are trying. Nervousness is good. I would be worried if I weren't nervous. Right? If you don't have butterflies in your stomach before a public speaking event, or before you give a speech, or before you do something important, if you don't have those butterflies, it means you're overconfident. And that is a bad thing, right? Have those butterflies, conquer those butterflies, and go do it anyway. Being nervous is great because it will make you perform that much better. It will make you prepare, and it will make you perform better.
I'm quickly, we are racing against time. It's time up, but I'm quickly going to take another question. So I think there was another question saying my child is shy and introvert. We did speak about this, right? About labeling the children. Anything else that you would like to say about this question?
Once again, I would like to make a distinction between shyness and introvert. Sometimes we just use words that have been thrown out so often in our childhoods and when we were growing up, and we just continue to use them in our adulthoods as well. There is a very, very clear distinction between being an introvert and being a shy child. An introvert, there is nothing wrong with being an introvert. So when parents can come to Sima and Ankita and I and tell us, my child is very introverted, can you change her? or can you change him, or will your classes change all of that? And we say, what is wrong with being an introvert? Introverts rule the world today. An introvert is a person who decides that they do not want to be in social contact and socializing all of the time with other people. They prefer to be within themselves. And a lot of the discoveries are made by introverts. A lot of the inventors are introverts. So introverts are ones who are confident and yet make a conscious decision that they would like to spend time with themselves. A shy child is one who is afraid to be with people, to be amongst people, to be in social situations, and is actually anxious. So now we need to see, how can we help the shy child? How can we accept the introvert for who he or she is?
Very true, very true. I think this is very important, drawing the line between shy and introvert and understanding the difference. There's a very thin line. So thank you, Deepma, for throwing that in. That was beautiful. I'll move on to the next question. Why is reading important, and how does it help build confidence?
I'd like to take that question, but I'm also going to let Ankita answer that, because we have a very interesting program called TLC, which is the Learning Continues, and it is aimed at very, very young kids. And we deliberately created that program with the idea of saying, let's take away these gadgets. I mean, I feel very sad when I'm traveling and at the airports, I see these strollers and these children are sitting there with an iPad, and the moms just don't want to deal with the kid because they're throwing a tantrum or they're upset. So I understand the need for the moms who are now, they need some mental peace, and they are trying to push their children into that. But I cannot stop talking about the importance of reading, because reading really cultivates so many things. One of the things that there's a saying which says, all readers are not leaders, but all leaders are readers. I remember this TED talk by Ken Robinson, where he talks about how do schools kill creativity, and I'd love for you all to actually watch that, where he talks about this little girl who's very shy, who doesn't want to, face people, who doesn't want to interact in any class. There's only one class that she does really well, which is the drawing class. And the teacher goes to her and says, why are you so interested in this class, and what are you drawing? And the girl says, oh, I'm drawing the picture of God. And he says, but nobody has seen God. How do you know what God looks like? And she says, but they'll know now. Look at the way the world is going today. What do you think is required in the 21st century for children? They need to be resilient. They need to they need to have very high emotional quotient. They need to have confidence. I mean, look at the amount of stuff that we are expecting from these kids. And how will they have that unless they start from a place of emotional, imagination, creativity, all of those things, and that comes only from reading. That's why the 3 programs that we offer, whether it is the TLC, which is aimed at just reading for children, a lot of reading that we do there. We also go into the Readers to Leaders program, where reading is the base, but we do recognize that kids who are 8 to 10-year-olds are now moving into that, that toddler to adolescence phase, where they're trying to assert themselves, they're trying to take more responsibility. And we always bring books as a very, very strong medium of communication. And I'll let Ankita talk a little more about, I think, TLC and RTL, because that's really critical in bringing that confidence in a child.
Kids these days, we are just perpetually seeing them on gadgets. Now, what is happening is gadgets is actually taking them away from the real world. They are going into that world of isolation where it's just them in that gadget mode. And what I've also seen this actually even in my nephew that I've observed is that the gadgets is overpowering his emotions. So if a particular gadget is not working, he can't find it, it really takes a toll on him. And see, academics are important, but academics is not the only thing that's going to help you crack an interview, that's going to help you beat through that group discussion. It's these skills that are going to help you reach there. So from TLC and in RTL, that's what we are focusing on. We pick up some amazing stories by award-winning authors, where through those stories, we are sharpening so many skills, from building interpersonal skills, communication skills, so many emotions that we are introducing them to. So while they are engaged in those stories, they are learning so much about dealing with their feelings, dealing with their emotions, social interaction, and just the holistic development. So that's what our focus of
I would like
TLC
to
in.
give an example of one child who's just about 5 or 6 years old in one of our programs, and they had to do this exercise called the wheel of choice. I think it was called the wheel of choice, where they said, okay, supposing you had a fight with somebody or somebody gets angry at you, what would you do? This was the question that one of our teachers asked, and the child says, "I'll go to my friend and say sorry." And I'm thinking, as adults, if we have a fight or an argument or disagreement on something, how many of us feel free to go and say, of course I'll go and say sorry? But children have that ability, and let's keep that ability, that innocence. Let's bring out that beautiful way of looking at the world, which I think only children have. And I think that's why we love our job so much, because we are constantly interacting with kids, and it's such a pleasure to hear these kind of words from our kids, and they teach us more than we teach them, I feel.
They are actually listening to you all the time. They are picking up everything that the way you're walking, the way you're talking, the things that you're doing, the way you are talking to your house help, the way you're talking to your partner. They are observing everything. So it's very, very important that we be good role models to be able to imbibe those qualities in them. And through TLC and RTL and LAC, all the programs that we conduct, this is our motto to, completely turn them into these confident communicators by sharpening all these different skills, which I just mentioned.
These are all the things that we need to inculcate, into children from a young age. And I like what Seema said, the kind of books they read. First of all, reading, very important. I completely agree. The last question is, my child doesn't participate actively or ask questions in class. How do I encourage them to ask more questions?
That is a very, very common question that we get from a lot of
Common
parents.
question.
And it has become an even more common question now that learning has gone online and parents are unfortunately in the classroom, in the online classroom with the children off camera. So they're constantly judging the child as well as the teacher. Now we see it's almost like we're a fly on the wall, right? In the classroom, and there's a lot of judgment that is coming from that. So what I would say with this situation is, get out of the room, give the teacher as much ability and as much privacy as they used to have in the classroom, even on the online forum, because that makes the teacher also a little more confident and a little more able
Yes.
to teach. Give them that, empower the teacher to teach, right? Let them do their job. They're a teacher for a reason. So that's one thing for sure. The second thing is, how do I make my child more assertive? How do I make sure she or he asks more questions? Is at the end of the class or at the end of the day, again, we talk about conversations, right? Are you connecting with your children? What happened in school today? What did the teacher say? What did the other children say? What did you say? Were you able to say something? Is there something that kind of got left out? Share stories from yourself. Like, for example, a lot of the times I'd be in meetings where I'd be thinking about what I wanted to say. I'd be trying to formulate my response or formulate my question in my head, and by the time I got it perfectly formulated, the moment had passed. Someone had either asked that question already or they had moved on to something else. So when I share that with my children and I tell them, don't try to be perfectionists, because sometimes the moment just passes. So if you have a question, just jump in and go ahead and say it. They get more comfortable because they know that mom used to be nervous too. And I think it's time to start saying, we didn't have that idealized of a childhood. We had almost the same experiences as our children are having. Let's teach them how to deal with those situations and jump in without trying to be perfect.
That put your kids in programs that encourage failure, that encourage your creativity to come out, that encourages you to give your opinion. Keep putting them in situations where it's okay to push your kids a little bit, to say, okay, no, try it. It's okay if you don't do well, but try it. Don't give up. We make sure that the mission that we are on to empower others is something that we will continue on in our programs also. So I think that mindset change is all we need, and I think we can all do it. It takes a village.
So I think with that, we'll wind up today's session. I would require the recording because I have a few parents who've messaged me, WhatsApp me, saying that they want the recording of the session since they couldn't be a part of it today. But to conclude the session, thank you so much, Deepma, Sima, Ankita. It was fabulous collaborating with you guys and with TCC. I am so happy as an educator to see that there are places that do encourage failures, and they encourage children to learn from them. I think that's the basic thing that we need today in our system, and it's fabulous that you guys do that. So thank you so much for bringing in to our education system. I think we needed it desperately, and you guys did it. So thank you so much, parents, those who are still there with us. Thank you so much for connecting with us. Thank you. Have a pleasant weekend.
You too. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.